What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Alex Porter of Location3.com. And Alex, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out. And I always love to hear the different niches people are in, especially in the agency world. You know, with Location3, they go by every franchise's story and they help tell it. And we'll go into the details on that. But you know, I had Duncan Allen of Firebelly Marketing. He focuses on food and beverage companies. I have, you know, Todd Taskey, who actually helps match agencies with private equities. He does M&A stuff, but only with agencies matching with private equity. So I love to hear the different niches people are in. And so we'll dig deeper into that. Check out more episodes on the podcast. And this episode is brought to you by Rise25. Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We are an easy button for a company to launch and run their podcast. We do strategy, accountability, and full execution production for a podcast. We call ourselves like the magic elves that work in the background to make everything happen. You know, for me, Alex, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way to do that than to profile the people and companies I most admire and profile and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com and learn more. And I'm excited to introduce Alex Porter. He's CEO of Location3. They're a preferred digital partner of multi-location brands and franchise systems. They've been delivering enterprise strategy with local activation all the way back to 1999. And they have over 80 team members, over $60 million in annual media billings. They support over 50,000 franchisees and business locations. And like I was saying, their message is every franchise is a story and they help tell it. So Alex, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on. I've actually been on Todd's podcast.
You have?
His Second Bite podcast, yeah. So
love the Second Bite podcast.
Right?
We help Todd, and Todd's awesome. Talk about Location3 and what you do.
Yeah, so Location3, like you mentioned, we've been around since the early days of the internet and have gone through various iterations over those years. But about 5 years ago, we really decided to focus on the franchise space. And we operate in two different entities. The Location3 side is your traditional digital agency, really focused on data and analytics and national media programs and closed loop reporting and things of that nature, working with CMOs of big franchise brands. And then on the franchisee side, we've built our own platform called LOCALACT that is a solution for franchisees to understand their local digital marketing as well as buy local digital media. So the individual franchisee of your local tutoring company can go into the LOCALACT. They see where their traffic is coming from. They understand if they're getting reviews, if they're getting phone calls, and then they can understand how their local marketing is working. So they search for tutor near me. How many people clicked on that? What was the cost? Did it convert? Did people show up at their location? And then they have the ability to kind of work with our support team to understand those metrics and ultimately drive customers. For us, the end of the day is we want to drive customers and revenue for our franchisee systems.
Talk about the focus. You said at one point you focused on franchises. What caused that?
Yeah, so it was a moment in time where one of our biggest clients went out of business somewhat unexpectedly, and we were left really looking internally at existential crisis of who are we? What do we do? What do we do well? this was also at a time where there seemingly were thousands of digital agencies all kind of saying the same thing. We're really good at performance. We're ROI focused and all these things, kind of a sea of sameness. And so we looked at our existing clients that had been with us a long time and we enjoyed working with, and they were all in the franchise space. And looking at that market, we realized pretty quickly that there weren't very many agencies or any really that were focusing on the franchise space, because it's hard. It's hard when you're working with a franchise system, and essentially every single franchisee is their own CMO. And that marketing at that franchisee level is so impactful to them as an individual, right? It helps them pay for college, pay for summer camp, whatever the case might be. So there's a very vested interest in this. So when we work with a franchise system and they have 500 franchisees, every single one of them wants to be a VIP and deserves to be a VIP. But we thought that there is a lot of opportunity, and it's proved that we were correct in that assumption.
I'd love to learn more about what you do and people can understand what you do. Can you talk about Wild Birds?
Yes. So Wild Birds is they're all my favorite clients, but one of my favorite partners that we
favorite children, right?
Right. They Wild Birds Unlimited. They have retail locations where they sell bird feeders and bird seeds and things like that. And when we started working with them, gosh, probably 5+ years ago, they had a very limited digital marketing plan or presence. And the team over there has the mindset of, let's test and learn. Let's try things out. Let's use data to support our hypotheses. And so we've gone from almost no digital to their locations are running paid search. They're running Meta. They're running YouTube. They're running retargeting. And then at that enterprise level, we've tested out connected TV buys and other digital marketing opportunities that are more measurable and really can kind of see the connection between a connected TV buy in a region with retail revenue rising. And not to mention the pandemic. Who would have thought that a pandemic would increase bird watching, but it sure did. And so they're great.
Good for social distancing.
Great for and frankly very entertaining. I'm still trying to get an Oriole bird to my Oriole bird feeder. I'm from Baltimore originally, and I have not been successful because the squirrels keep getting the oranges. But I'm not giving up hope on that. But I think why it works well is a mindset of innovation, and it's a mindset of we're truly partnering with them to understand their business, but B to drive that revenue. And the proof ultimately is in that same store revenue growth. And hey, let's try this new tactic. We're going to do it best practices. We're going to partner with our partners to make sure that we're spending each dollar as efficiently as possible. And the payoff is in their success. And that's why the franchise space is so rewarding for us as a company and for our teammates here at Location3 is we hear about it all the time. We get on a phone call with a franchisee who said, I've never had so many customers. This is unbelievable. How do I do more? And of course, there's some that are frustrated and maybe need some education on how YouTube videos work and why that's not going to directly correlate to a sale online and things like that. But for the most part, it's a very rewarding and very instantaneous feedback that we get from working in this business.
Alex, how do you navigate? You said there's challenges with any niche and with franchises. How do you navigate, the corporate versus the individual franchisee? Does it typically happen where you're talking to corporate and they want to disperse you? Because listen, ultimately it's going to benefit them if you're driving tons of sales to their locations.
Right.
They want this to happen across all their locations, or typically as it happen, you're working with one and then word spreads from there.
Yeah, we currently start at the franchisor level, so at the enterprise level, because they are kind of the guardians or the stewards for their franchisees. It's their responsibility to make sure that they're assisting their franchisee in their marketing efforts. But for the most part, the franchisee does have some flexibility to do kind of whatever they want in some regards. They're typically paying a percentage of revenue back to corporate for an ad fund, and then that ad fund can go to fund a lot of different things. So our process is to get to know the franchise system, get to know how that relationship works from a funding perspective. Our goal would be for the franchisor to say, hey, we're going to work with LOCALACT. They're a preferred vendor. You're going to get some preferred pricing by working with them because of our relationship. You're going to get some additional support. And then the best thing for us to do is to go to their annual conference. Most franchise systems have one time a year, they bring all their franchisees to one place. There's sessions on operations and finance and marketing, and we get to be there in person, and shake hands and walk people through the data. And we typically see adoption skyrocket after something like that, whether that's, hey, we just rolled out YouTube in the platform, you should be on YouTube and here's why. Or, if it's a brand new system we're just starting working with, we're going to see a lot of signups there. And then throughout the year, we're continuously engaging them with education opportunities. We'll put on webinars, send out information to them. And it's really a very much an ongoing process, because the digital marketing world changes so frequently, right? Like, okay, cookies are going away. What does that mean? How do we explain to a franchisee how the marketing technology landscape is changing in a way that makes them feel comfortable with their digital marketing results? It's overly complex.
Alex, I want to talk about the decision to create your own platform. That's not an easy decision. It's time and energy consuming. Before I get to that, I would love to know, how'd you get into this agency world? Because you started off in kinesiology, really. So I don't know what you were planning on doing then. What was your idea then?
Sure.
And how'd you land an agency?
So a long time ago, I moved out to Colorado from Maryland because I wanted to snowboard for a winter. And along the way, I ran into a college associate of mine who told me the internet was going to be big and I should come work with him. I was on the cusp of going back for a PhD in sports psychology and become a sports psychologist, is what I was thinking of doing at the time. The appeal of kind of a one-person company and getting in very early on something was exciting. And I'm sometimes I look back and say, what would have happened if I gone the other way? Because now everyone has a sports psychologist. Back 25 years ago, no one had it. But maybe when I retire, I'll go back and get that and have that as my second act of my career. But I use a lot of the sports psychology things all the time. It's about, peak performance and mental training and getting the most out of yourself and others. And
it's a lot of leadership. How has your responsibilities changed throughout the courses of your, positions, raising up from vice president, president, chief strategy officer to CEO?
So along with kind of the growth of the company and size and scope, there was just a lot of needs to be met along the way. And our founder, Andrew Beckman, is still actively involved in the company as our chairman and chief ambassador. But as we progressed, it was really the transition from into the franchise space and into developing our own technology that I moved into the CEO role that was a little bit more outward facing than inward facing. We have a great team here that is really doing a great job of running the business. And I'm looking at, what are our next opportunities? Where do we go from here? What partnerships do we need to put in place? Much more involved in the technology development and what we're doing from that perspective. We're currently and have been for the last year and a half, and this is where kind of our relationship with Todd came into play, is what is the capital opportunities for us as a company, as an agency, if we were to look for capital to accelerate our growth in technology and to gain more market share. So that's something that's top of mind for me right now. as well.
Talk about the decision to create your own platform, right? I mean, most agencies don't. It's a big undertaking. I'm sure that a lot of went into that decision.
Yeah, so a long, long time ago, before a company called Yext existed, we were doing listings management, so location data management, and we started to build our own platform for that tool. And it really started as a database, and then along with the database, let's kind of visualize some of that data. And so that was even before the focus on the franchise space. That's when we really focused on the multi-location space. Then with the franchise space, the franchisees wanted their information in a platform or a dashboard. And instead of just building maybe an Excel dashboard or Google Data Studio or something along those lines, we really realized the value of hosting all of that data and then also interfacing with the various technology platforms and their APIs from a push and pull perspective to be able to optimize those campaigns. And more so, it was around aggregating the data across the various channels. So, Google versus Instagram versus a programmatic buy versus, in the future, a connected TV buy. All those pieces of information need to be fed into kind of a marketing optimization platform to be able to get the best ROI out of what you're doing on that local level. And then, add into the fact that your data is somewhat limited because it is on that local level. So statistically significant results and et cetera, et cetera. So why did we build the platform? It was because our clients were asking for it. There wasn't a solution in the marketplace. And we also thought that our company would be more valuable if it had this technology component to it and go away from just a services-based business to really a technology-enabled services business to more and more technology-focused as we go through this process. I mean, we're not going to out-Google Google. We're not going to optimize better than Google can, but we can throw on that layer on top of it where we're taking into account organic traffic and social referrals and these sorts of things, and how those having negative reviews impact your conversion rate on paid and things like that. There's a lot of technology plus kind of artificial intelligence that takes some of the guesswork out and really make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck at that local level.
Alex, what type of new hires do you need to start to implement that, right? Because it's like, yeah, it sounds great. It's a big undertaking, right? Who did you need to have to put this in place?
Well, we built out our own software engineering department, and so you're going to need a database person, a UI, a middle layer person, a director of product, a project manager, and then a lot of kind of data analysts and data scientists that help us understand how this works. And as AI and machine learning have exploded over the last few years, there's a lot of opportunities to incorporate these new findings and new opportunities into our data. So you kind of feed the machine the data, and it does the rest.
It's a big decision. We were talking before we hit record about different products that you offer. And I think always as a company, there's products that a company has that they feel should have quicker adoption and more adoption, right? So I'd love to have you walk through one of those products that you think, you know what, this should be exploding more than it is.
Yeah, I mean, the software just as a whole, the LOCALACT software platform as a whole, is an amazing tool for any franchisee that would definitively 100% drive them customers at an effective cost per acquisition. And why we don't have 50,000 people on the platform instead of 5,000 is something that I'm working through and have been working through to understand. And I think a lot of it has to do with the franchisee is not a marketer. It's not their full-time job necessarily. They have a lot of things that are going on, and maybe they are still doing all direct mail, or maybe they're still doing all something else.
Can
But
they use it as like a self-serve model for themselves?
yes,
Yeah, they
yeah. I
can.
mean, it's 80%. I mean, we still kind of make the sausage in the back end, but for the setup and things like that, they do it all themselves. And even we'll go back to, like, let's say Wild Birds Unlimited. Like, let's say we have 95% of their locations in the platform. Still, that 5% that aren't there still is like a head scratcher to me. But more frequently, we'll have 400 locations out of 1,000 location platform, and so where are the 600 others? What are they doing? So to really go to this next level of growth is really trying to unlock the roadblocks that might exist for the adoption of this platform. Because
It's really interesting. Have you had other people approach you, like other types of businesses, want to use it?
Like non-franchise businesses?
Yeah, like agency. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of applications for that outside of franchises, but I know you're focused really on franchises.
Yeah, we are exploring other revenue opportunities beyond the franchise systems right now, for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But I guess one of the things you're thinking about is how do you eliminate any obstacles for people to be using it? How do you think about like increasing growth in general for this product or any?
Right. Is it the obstacles for using it, or is it a lack of understanding, or is it like a lack of trust in it because you don't tangibly touch it and see it? The Who knows, or I don't know. For right now, it's like you put $1 in and you get, let's call it $8 out. You would think that anyone would want to do that all day, every day. So that's a challenge that we're trying to solve for right now. But we're basically at the end of the day, we're kind of reselling the leading digital marketing platforms that exist right now. So it's not like we're selling something that is unproven.
Yeah.
So it's, we've had steady growth and steady adoption of the platform. It might be a generational thing. A lot of franchises are maybe on the older end of the spectrum, and as the next generation takes over, it'll be more adopted. But that's the unlocking the growth is probably priority number one for us right now.
Yeah, love it. I know, for you, one of the main things you're thinking about is growth in general. And you mentioned the outside capital. How are you thinking about growing? What are the different channels that you think about growing? And one of them obviously being outside capital.
Yes. I would say right now is the possibility of potentially doing some acquisitions of companies that are maybe similar to us but don't have the technology platform. Some other technology platforms that would bolt into our platform very seamlessly, and those would probably be the two main channels, other than investing more in sales and marketing and getting more brands and getting more touch points with senior leaders at the bigger, maybe the top 300 franchise systems. Because I only say that because that's, if you engage with a 500 location franchise system, it's much easier to get 200 of those locations than if you engage with a 100 location system and you get 10. Right. So there's just those economies of scale that are more available.
Who's an ideal client for you? Is there a certain location size that makes sense?
Right now we're focused on any franchise system that has more than 50 locations. And I use that 50 number because typically around that time is when that franchise system kind of levels up from whether their management team or their technology investment or their ad fund kind of matures. But we do really, really well with franchise systems that have high customer lifetime value. Whether that's elderly care or early childhood care or learning and things like that. Those have definitely been a sweet spot for us over the past few years.
As of late, I mean, Recruitment is always top of mind for companies, hiring, especially with what you do. I mean, they're probably constantly hiring. I know. I love to hear, how do you handle digital recruitment?
Yeah, so this is definitely a pandemic born idea where everyone was having problems hiring, and our clients, we were hearing it over and over on our discussions with the client. What keeps you up at night? Well, I would love to get more customers, but I don't have anybody to service the customers. And we thought to ourselves, well, we already have these hyper local campaigns set up for B2C. Let's go ahead and do this for recruiting. So we built out some great campaigns across search and social and retargeting. And essentially the idea was, let's reach these people directly instead of maybe relying on an Indeed or something like that, which was pretty expensive, and you would get a resume, but that same resume would go to 50 of your competitors. Let's go and try this one-to-one connection. And if you're a senior care facility and you need qualified nurses, like, let's go out and try to find them directly. And so that the cost per recruit was significantly lower. And the volume wasn't tremendous, but it didn't have to be, right? If we could fill a couple of open positions a month or a quarter at a fraction of the cost, and get that relationship directly, it was really successful. So it was a creative solution to a client's problem that we had already kind of 60% done. We just needed to switch the targeting of our marketing. It proved to be really valuable for our clients.
Alex, I just want to be the first one to thank you. Thanks for sharing the journey. Thanks for sharing. It's really remarkable what you do at Location3, with all the team members and all the, locations that you serve, over 50,000. So I want to encourage people to check out location3.com to learn more episodes of the podcast. And Alex, I really appreciate you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100 grand.